I'll call the meeting to order. Are we properly noticed and posted?
It has been posted according to law.
All right, roll call, please.
President Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Harding. Trustee Holm.
Here.
Trustee Moody. Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Seeger. Here. Trustee Wisniewski.
Here.
And so welcome to our 3 new members. For those who are new, just hit the people button here, because we do have people remote, and this is streamed, so if you are talking, then people won't be able to hear you. So I will move on to citizen participation per Village Resolution 2017-01. Anyone wishing to address the Village Board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject must specifically relate to matters under the jurisdiction of the Village Board, whether on the agenda or not. The Village Board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of the publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of this citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they're participating in a public hearing or is specifically allowed by a majority vote of the Village Board due to involvement in an agenda item. Go ahead. Yep, come on up. Hit the button. Name and address. It's the little people button there.
I don't know if this is right or not, but I just wanted what you said, name, Leon, LD's Barbecue, 2511 Main Street. Why is gas always more expensive in East Troy than anywhere else? Is that a question I can ask?
You can. I'm not really sure that that's anything that other our purview. So I would say,
The gas stations in the village.
yeah, I'd say address that question to those business owners as to their pricing. So other questions or comments during citizen participation? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close citizen participation. We'll move on to consent agenda. 1 motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately. So I guess any items, questions before the motion to pull?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to miscellaneous business. Item 1, presentation of 2024 audit report by Johnson Block and Company Incorporated. So we've got the board summary, the draft financial report, and the draft required audit communications to the village. So we've got Kevin from Johnson Block, who's our auditor, and he's going to give us the presentation. Kevin, it's all yours.
Okay, can you hear me fine?
We can.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk briefly on the overview, and it looks like you've got that up on the screen there. And like to just give a brief content of what the audit report entails. I believe that's in your package. The audit report itself is, roughly 80 pages. So what's included within there is there's an independent auditor's report. That's really our work product in terms of Johnson Block. What our role as auditors is to give an opinion on the financial statements. Our report is unmodified, which is what you want to have in there, and which means there's no modifications. The village has followed generally accepted accounting principles. After that, it gets into the financial statements. There's one area called management discussion and analysis that follows the independent auditor's report, and that gives a brief overview of some of the summary financial information that's included within the rest of the financial statements themselves. Then you get into the financial statements, and there's fund financial statements, which is you've got your governmental funds, which is the general fund is the major operating fund, and then you have your capital projects fund, your TIF districts, debt service fund. Those are the main governmental funds. There's business type funds, which is your utilities, your water and sewer utility, and then your airport. There's a government-wide financial statements, which usually those are the first two financial statements there. They're the kind of consolidated financial statements. They'll present themselves in terms of governmental activities and business type activities. It's a consolidation of there. The governmental funds follow a different basis of accounting than the business type funds. The governmental funds are on what is called the modified accrual basis of accounting, which measures current assets and current liabilities, but items such as long-term debt, fixed assets aren't included on the fund financial statements, but they are on the government-wide statements. The largest section included within the audit, the financial statements, are the notes to the financial statements. And, there's a large footnote that outlines the accounting policies, but then each of the major transaction areas: cash, receivables, capital assets, debt, fund balance, your pension, WRS, there's footnotes associated with that. So that makes up essentially the financial statements themselves. We've also got a recorded audit communication to the village, and that has matters that we have in terms of standard communications that are included. There really isn't anything new in there from the previous year. We've got a comment on one of the things that we do is when we come in there and we audit the books, we get the financial data, an awful lot of financial data, just besides the village's chart of accounts that get sent up in their trial balance. We ask for a lot of data and have at it. And there are some adjustments that were made to the books, and then when we draft the financial statements, those are incorporated, and we give audit adjustments back to the village to post those. Key financial results: the governmental funds have a large fund balance, a little over $4.8 million, and I'm not going to go through really the rest of the financial overview, but on the third page of it, I've got the detail of what makes up the fund balance on there. The general fund balance decreased by $93,000, but it was up approximately $157,000 before a $200,000 transfer to the capital projects fund and another $50,000 transfer to the CDA. Revenues were up over $140,000 over budget, mostly from stronger interest income. And we had seen that a lot with the municipalities that we audited. Interest rates were up in 24, and as a result, interest income was up for most places above what the budget was. So that was a large driver in, like I said, you were up approximately $157,000 prior to some non-recurring transfers over into those the capital projects in the CDA fund. Expenditures were pretty close to budget, exceeding it only by a little less than $1,200. The unassigned general fund balance, which really is one of the things that we want to do when we take a look at what the health of the village is you take a look at what the unassigned fund balance is in relation to the operating expenditures. So your unassigned general fund balance is about 41% of your 2024 expenditures and about 39% of the 2025 budgeted expenditures. So it's healthy. And in addition to that, and I believe you've discussed this at previous meetings, You've got a fair amount of assigned fund balance money that is designated for specific purposes. So, I mean, the health of your governmental funds, you've got your capital projects fund and your general fund that are very, strong fund balance. Your TIF districts have got a little bit of a deficit from having projects funds advanced over from other funds, which is common for TIF districts. And there's some non-spendable fund balance on the capital projects fund associated with some of that, and then I think also with the sewer fund that there is there. As far as the utilities go, the water utility had operating income of $381,000 and a decrease in cash flow of about $182,000 with, and a main reason for the decrease in cash flow is there was some, capital expenditures of $447,000, which there was some, I think, School Street and Highway 20 projects associated with that. The sewer utility had operating income of $59,000. Cash flow decreased by $845,000, but really there was some capital expenditures there. There was an advance of money to the TIF district of about $560,000, and then there was some purchase of non-cash equivalents. But both the water and the sewer utility have, strong cash balances that are available to them. So on, pages 4 and 5 of the financial overview provides a quick snapshot of those. And, one of the other things that we look at with the utilities is just what their current position is, which is what are their current assets versus their current liabilities. The current assets include not just cash, but, mainly your receivables, any inventory or prepaid expenditures that also go in there and against your current liabilities, which is typically your accounts payable, your current portion of debt, and any payroll related liabilities. Both of those for both the water and the sewer fund are, very, very strong on there. So the general obligation debt limit, which is the amount of money for that you can borrow against your general obligation debt is, your limit is 31.7 million, and the debt that counts towards that is 10.1 million. So you're, in essence, in very good, strong financial shape there. So those were the key highlights that I wanted to go over. And again, in the rest of the financial overview, I just am going to point out what's included within there. On page 2, we've got a summarized financial highlights and then the details of the general fund balance that's associated with it. Page 3 gets a little bit more detailed in terms of the components of the fund balance that are there for not just the general fund, but the capital projects fund, and the TIF fund is there. Pages 4 and 5 are summary of the income statement of the utilities and summary of the cash flows for the utilities that are associated there. And then we get into some more longer term after that, starting with pages kind of 6 through page 13 has got some charts and graphs associated with expenditures and revenues from trend analysis over the past 5 years that were there. And the pie charts were actually for the last 2 years. And then I've got a graphical representation of what the general obligation debt is versus the capacity components of fund balance that are there. And then finally, the last page in there is just a breakdown in terms of what are the components of your property taxes. I mean, when your residents pay their property taxes in, December or January of the year, and if they pay in 2 installments, the second installment will go to the county. But it's not just the village's property taxes that they're paying the other overlying taxing jurisdictions, which include the county, the school, and the VOTEC, that are there. And we've got a graphical pie chart that represents that. So that's, the quick, 10-minute overview of the financial statements, which is, what I generally like to do. And if you got any comments, questions, clarifications, feel free to ask.
Any questions for Kevin or for Eileen?
Kevin, thank you for all of the good news on the audit, unmodified opinion. Excellent. You did include, as required, the communication of material weaknesses, and in there's an auditor's recommendation that talks about the auditors will continue to work with the village, providing information. Can you talk a little bit about what's meant there, what sort of continuing work you are planning to do with village staff? Thank you.
Well, I think over the years, and we've been doing the audit for a fair number of years, the audit adjustments have been being reduced over the years. Inevitably, and honestly, we've got this comment in, I would say, 95% of the audits that we have, and inevitably, our profession has got changes in terms of their accounting requirements. One of the things this year, they had a new accounting standard in regards to compensated absences that changed how that was being accounted for compared to previous years. And a lot of the adjustments that we have, some of them are true ups in terms of truing up depreciation expense. Some of them are handling some of these standards. One of the ones that's really kind of complicated and technical also is your pension plan standard, which when that came in, that added about 5 pages to the footnotes and a very complicated actuarial determination in terms of how the entries and the pension liability and deferred inflows and outflows need to be recorded. We help with that type of stuff. And absent of you having, spending a lot of money and resources and having, that being done internally every year and, outsourcing that, we basically try and help the village as part of the process in terms of doing the audit, like we do with most of our clients. So I wouldn't say it's a big alarm or anything like that, but I hope that gives a little bit of context. The books are in good shape, so.
Thank you.
Other questions? Kevin, so I'll follow on with Jim's questions, I guess real technical. On one of your adjusting entries was around software-based IT arrangements. Is that because of GASB 96 becoming in effect?
Yes.
Is that something that, based on, I guess, our types of software, like that's going to be a bigger problem for us going forward, or no? Like, are we kind of more of a true-up?
I think with GASB 96, for the most part, what we've seen is it hadn't had as much of an effect as like the lease standards that you had. The lease standard that you had, that one was one in which there was a substantial adjustments that were made because you had about I don't know how many airport leases do you have? So.
Not enough.
So that one was more involved. The what they call subitas, it was I think we considered it immaterial and didn't include it, but, so,
No, that's where I was going with my question, so thank you.
yeah.
Other questions? All right, Kevin, thank you very much,
Thank you.
and your team for
Have a
your
nice
work.
night.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2, consider memorandum of understanding with Walworth County Sheriff's Office for storm siren upgrades. Chief?
So I got this email probably about 10 days ago, not last Friday, but the Friday before, regarding that Walworth County Board approved funding to update all the storm sirens in the whole county, which I think is like 59 of them. We have 4. What they want to do is, it's part of the radio project that is going on right now. What they want to do is pretty much replace the guts in each of the sirens. And the difference is going to be right now if like the Weather Service says there's a possible tornado in the southern part of the county, they can't just set off the storm sirens in the southern part of the county. They got to set out all of them. That's the way it works right now. So this new system will pretty much it'll be automated. So when the Weather Service sends out that polygon, and if it shows it's coming towards East Troy, our sirens will go off automatically. Nobody's got to set them off. It's all automated. And then the ones in the south part of the county might not even go off. So they're willing to foot the expense to do this. Obviously, all maintenance that we currently do now will be continued. Anything with the sirens, maintenance-wise, we're funding it now, so this is just pretty much a memorandum. I know Attorney Geary talked to me right before the meeting, and he did have a little bit of a concern about the MOU if he wants to.
Yeah, the only concern really goes to, it's obviously a good deal from the village's perspective, the county's going to pay for it. But the problem is that the county is hiring the contractor that's doing the work, so there's some privity of contract there. If the contractor screws up, the county has some recourse against them. But the village has no, under the MOU, the village has no recourse against the county because we have to indemnify them against any problems, and we don't have any relationship, any contractual relationship with the contractor that's actually doing the work. So if something were to go tragically wrong and they screw up and now the sirens don't work when the time comes, the village doesn't really have any recourse against anybody. So what I was telling Jeremy, what I'd like to do is approach the county and or maybe the contractor and see if they would be willing to add the village as an additional insured under their contract, kind of pick up that exposure. They may or may not go for it. And again, I mean, Jeremy makes a good point. They're going to test it after they've done the work and make sure everything's working. So the risk of real harm there is probably not great. But at the same time, there just really isn't any party that the village has any recourse under the current structure.
Is that, though, when you talk about maintenance, is that would we use that same contractor to do maintenance or repairs in the future?
That'll be a decision we need to make because we don't use this company right now. We use Sheboygan Warning Systems as our maintenance. So I'm sure that they're well aware of what's going on because I know that they do other municipalities here in the county. So
Kind of makes sense to use the person that's doing the work to do the maintenance as well.
right, if they offer that maintenance yearly, like we do now, where they come out and test the siren, and, I mean, this new system also is gonna let us know when the batteries are on their last legs. I mean, right now, they come out once a year, and sometimes they'll call me and say, hey, you need to replace these batteries. So they could have been, a couple of batteries could have been dead for 3 months, and we don't know. This way, with this new system that they're gonna put in, it'll give us real-time information daily It'll be sent to myself and then whoever else we want to send it to, so we can take care of things right away.
So who owns the siren? Is it us?
We own the
So it's
four
our
sirens.
property?
Yes, it's our property.
Okay.
And I would say, Jeremy, from the email you attached to your email sending it over to me, it does seem to contemplate that there would be the village would ultimately be doing a contract with the federal signal manufacturer. I think that's for the maintenance piece of it, so they seem to be contemplating that we're
I
going to
think
be doing
that,
a deal with them.
I think that's more for the cell service.
Okay. So you think we'd still separate it out?
Yeah, I think it's still going to be separated out. I think that agreement that we have for them is with the cell service, because instead of being radio right now, it's going to go to cell as radio backup. So,
So it can be triggered if the cellular network is not available?
right,
Okay.
yeah, it can be triggered with the radio. That radio frequency will be the backup.
We're still going to have weekly tests here like we do now, right?
Monthly,
Or monthly?
once a month.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I would, if it's our property, I think that I tend to agree with Chris. I'd like to see some indemnification here. I don't know, are you all amenable to approving subject that we get that? And if we don't, then have the chief and Chris bring it back?
Yes. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding. Okay, what's the word I want? Subject to the chief working with the county regarding the identification? No. Okay, identification, I did get it out.
I'll second that.
Okay. Questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you both and thank you, Chris, for catching that. Item 3, consider development agreement with BLD East Troy 1 LLC for development of parcel RA512200002 located on South Executive Drive within TID 4. Eileen?
Okay, I'll give some quick highlights, and Attorney Yeri's here to go over any questions or anything I might miss. So this is the last large parcel in East Troy Business Park South. The parcel is identified on this map. It is just south of Max Apparel. The owner of the property currently is the village. It will be BLD East Troy 1 LLC, which is associated with Bryan Development Corporation. The tenant will be Pieper Power and MP Systems. They are proposing building a 130,000 square foot building that's been approved at the Plan Commission level. Approximately 25,000 square feet will be office, and the remainder will be a warehouse. They are required to meet a minimum value of $7.2 million by 1/1 of '26. And they will provide a road reservation in the northernmost 66 feet of the property for the village road to connect the property east if that becomes necessary in the future. There were some expenses that were incurred due to that requirement. We had to move their driveway into that road reservation, so there are utilities and things that have to be moved, and I've stated in my memo that the village is providing reimbursement for some of those costs because we would have incurred them when we put a road in anyway, and it was additional cost to the developer because we required them to move that driveway. The village is granting 11.2 acres of land in exchange for that guaranteed value. As I mentioned, minimum value $7.2 million. The developer feels confident that it's going to exceed that $7.2 million, and we do have a provision in the agreement that there is an upfront incentive for $150,000. But if they do exceed that $7.2 million for each $250,000 of extra value they bring, they'll get $20,000 in an incentive, up to a maximum of an additional $100,000 or $8.2 million in value. And that sunsets after 5 years, and they don't get that upfront incentive until it's been verified whether they meet that guaranteed value. If they don't, that incentive would be prorated. Those terms match what the village board had discussed in negotiations with the developer. We're tentatively scheduled to close on the property on Friday, provided the board approves this and approves the resolution to close on the property. And then just additionally, according to their Plan Commission application, initially they anticipate adding 35 office jobs and 20 shop employees, but they're projecting long-term that they will have 65 office employees and 55 shop employees. Did I miss anything, Chris?
No, I think he has the highlights. I guess the only other things I would flag is it's structured the same as the development agreements that we've done for all the other developments in there. There's just a couple of minor variations, one of them being we're actually requiring a slightly larger letter of credit up front because there is the upfront cash incentive that the village is giving them. Every other deal has been, we're giving you the land, you bring the value, and that's the end of it. This one, because there is a cash upfront incentive, we kind of built that into the letter of credit to give the village a little bit more security. Otherwise, we do still have the deed back. Again, slightly different. We get the deed back, we can hold it until they actually start doing grading work. Once they do that, then the deed back goes away. And that's to, frankly, their lender's not going to give them any money if there's a deed back that's out there, which makes sense. Otherwise, I think that the structure's about the same. I guess the only other thing that I would add is to the extent two legal points here. We do have it noticed up so that the board can go into closed session to talk about any strategic considerations you want to at the end of this. But to the extent the board's inclined to approve it tonight, there were some minor sort of language changes that we tweaked along that we made today with the attorney from Brian. So I would recommend that if the board's inclined to approve it, whether now or after closed session, it would be approval subject to the final revision with the changes that were approved by council.
One thing I wanted to add too is the reason that we discussed that upfront incentive were the additional costs incurred in the development because there is a wetland on the property. So that is requiring the developer to put in retaining walls and incur extra costs in developing this property. It's an additional challenge.
Any questions? So the resolution later in the agenda is for the transfer of the property. Is that right? So you're looking for an approval of the development agreement unless we have negotiation points, we can do that in closed.
And that should be contingent on modifications, but.
Yeah.
Make a motion to consider to approve the development agreement with modifications that have been done in today's sessions between the attorneys for RA 5122-00002, located at South Executive Drive.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 4, consider second amendment to development agreement Lofts of Honey Creek LLC for parcels RA 4915000001, 2761 through 2773 Honey Creek Road, and RA 49150002, located within TID 4. Eileen?
Okay, I gave you a nice mathematical equation to explain this. So the developer provides a letter of credit according to their development agreement that's equivalent to 1 year of tax increment based on their 15 million guaranteed value. That letter of credit that they initially issued expires in 5 years, so it's set to expire on April 24th. The developer had asked if we'd consider allowing them to deposit funds on escrow with the village for the shortage in their value and what that would equate to in tax increment. They're very close to that value. They're at $14.3 million in value. So when you calculate out that difference, it's $12,200 in difference between the actual property tax that they're paying on the 14.3 and what they'd pay on the 15. I fully expect they're going to meet the 15 as of the first of the year. We are doing a market update this year, and that current assessment at the 14.3 is a 72.5% assessment ratio. So I expect after the first of the year, we'll be releasing the funds that they would deposit. Did I miss anything, Chris?
Any questions on that?
I make a motion to accept the second amendment to the development agreement for the lofts of Honey Creek, parcel RA 4915000001, Honey Creek, 2761 through 2773 Honey Creek Road.
Second.
All right, questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 5, consider approval of special event permit and temporary Class B license, 3 operators for Chamber First Friday events, 5 to 8 p.m. on Friday, May 2nd, Friday, June 6th, contingent upon receipt of proof of insurance and payment of fees. So Eileen, do you want a little bit of background here? I mean, I know what we know what First Fridays are, but.
Okay, so. I
just thought there was a memo
I
here.
wasn't
Sorry.
really prepared to present this, but I do know that we received the certificate of insurance today, correct, Annette? Yes,
Okay.
we received the certificate of insurance. We have had some conversations at a staff level about how we can combine some of these applications. So Vanessa is not needing to submit separate applications throughout the year. So as I've reviewed this, I think one of the things we'll be proposing is that she submits all those First Friday event applications at the same time. They're so similar. So, but we'll work on that at a staff level with her.
I make a motion to approve the special event permit and temporary Class B license for the Chamber's First Friday events.
I second that.
All right, motion is second. Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So Dan, with your new appointment, if there's anything that you hear that we can do to make this easier for them, let us know.
Copy.
Thank you. All right, item 6, consider approval of patrol truck purchase. Jason?
Okay, so I guess for the benefit of some of the newer trustees, what we're looking at here today is a purchase of a snowplow truck. We have a total of 5 trucks. 4 of them plow snow, and then the oldest one goes down to the sewer plant to haul sludge from the process building out to the storage beds. And so what we're talking about today is the chassis for the truck. Post-COVID, there were shortages in raw materials and components to build trucks. So back in '23, we had to provide letters of intent to purchase this snowplow for delivery in early 2026. Well, it turns out those delays are going away, and the truck chassis itself came in early. As in, I just got notified a couple of weeks ago that the chassis is built, sitting in Janesville at the dealership. Still not slated for delivery to us until early 2026. So what it is, when the chassis comes in, then it goes to a body upfitter, and they add the equipment, the dump body, the snow plows, salting equipment, and so on. And that still won't happen till late '25 into '26. So in 2025, we had budgeted $68,000 for the upfitter, the Monroe Truck Equipment, to pay them a deposit to get our build slot for late '25, and then the truck could be constructed. We didn't intend to pay for the truck chassis until early 2026, when we take delivery of everything. But anyway, the chassis came in. And so the way it works is similar to a car dealership, that once the vehicles show up on the dealership, the dealers end up paying interest on those vehicles until they're sold. So he reached out and said, well, we're getting charged interest on this truck. And if you take delivery on it in early 2026, that'll accumulate to about $6,000. And I said, well, we didn't need it now. We didn't want it now. And he said, we understand that. We'll split the interest with you. So in other words, $3,000 to the village, $3,000 to the dealer. And I said, okay. And then he told me that they are willing to put this truck back in the pool and sell it to someone else and order us another one. But by the way, there'll be tariffs on the new one if you order it right now. And I can't guarantee you a price on it right now. So I feel that the lesser of the two evils here, the less amount of risk would be to pay them a certain amount of interest on the chassis that's already been delivered. Another thought that I had after I wrote this memo was, if we were to pay for the chassis now, if I were to go to them and say, we'll pay for the chassis now, but we're not going to pay any interest, I suspect that would be something they would go for because it's going to save them money as well, but I don't know that. So I guess that's why I'm looking for some direction from the board on this.
So we want the truck, right?
We do, yes, and the truck came up in our regular cycle of replacement.
Sure. And if we pay for the truck right now, it's the same thing, no difference in costs to receive the truck in 2026.
Correct. There would be no additional interest on the chassis itself. And those prices in my memo here are locked in. So yes, if we were to pay for the chassis now, the equipment costs are already locked in, and the total is the sum of those two.
And the $3,000 is way above and beyond what we had anticipated, and it's just basically throwing money out the window.
Correct.
I was just asking Eileen, to Kevin's point earlier, what is the interest rate we're earning on cash right now? So, 5% of 125 is roughly $6,000. So I'm a little leery, 125,000. That's the suggestion, right? Is that we just write the check for the 125. Yes, this is all a big timing.
That is one of the
exercise,
options.
right? Yeah. So,
What about depreciation and what does it show on our books?
Yeah, and relatedly, when does title transfer? If normally you wouldn't pay for it until you get it at the end of it, right?
Correct,
Cut the check.
until delivery.
So if something were to happen to it at the facility where they're updating it, is that our truck now or is that their truck?
I don't believe we would get title of it until we take delivery.
Okay.
so I'm all in favor of doing something here because of the concerns you raised and the uncertainty around tariffs and those prices, because we don't want to be in 26 needing a truck, and next thing we know, it's $200,000. So we're getting about a little more than 4.5% earning on our interest. Of course, we'll see what that does over this year, but that's $57.50 so if you take 4.5% of 125,556, that's $57.50. If you've already got a verbal agreement that they'll take 3,000 now, I think we're going to break even or walk, or maybe come out just slightly ahead.
And just to be clear, we wouldn't have to pay the interest until we take delivery.
I don't know, what do you all think?
I think we wait, pay the 3,000 interest based on the numbers that we have in front of us. I don't know, because if you take the delivery now, then it's, then it starts accumulating. It's just going to sit there, and then depreciation is going to hit a little earlier. So,
And I agree, as long as we're making money, 4.5% right now, we'll be ahead. Does that make sense?
If something wonky happens, can we move ahead quicker than waiting? Is this a one and done, or?
So the whole challenge at this point is the body upfitters build slot, and they're telling me the earliest they could do it is November. But I just, by the time, if they get it in their shop in November, by the time we get through the process, it probably wouldn't be before January delivery anyway.
And us taking delivery on it now versus later has no impact on that, correct?
Correct.
So this is, I guess, to Mary's question, this is purely a deal between us and the dealer.
Correct.
So if interest rates collapse and something else wonky happens this summer and the dealer wants to talk about modifying this deal, then we'll talk about that then. So do you want a motion on this, or you just want direction?
I don't think I need a motion. I'm satisfied with the direction.
Okay, so we're going to do we'll split the interest, which we'll pay in January when we take delivery.
Understood.
Okay, good. I have a feeling we're going to be having more of these conversations.
Do we need to get that in writing from the dealer?
Yeah, so you'll bring it back in agreement?
I do have it in email. I mean, I can get you something else if that's what you'd like.
I think just a basic agreement would be preferable to lock that in. Just because again, if interest rates go crazy or something, then I don't want to, and that's what I said, then if that changes and we need to change the deal, then we'll change the deal later. We'll hear that argument.
Okay, I'll bring you something back.
Okay, thanks. All right. Item 7, consider approval of arc flash study. This is Tom's. Sorry, not Jason, this is Tom's.
Hello. To those of you I don't know, I'm Tom Pluis. I manage the wastewater treatment plant for the village. This memo is about an arc flash study. So the reason for the arc flash study is to protect village employees and/or contractors performing work in the village. An arc flash study pinpoints potential areas within the village facilities where arc flash incidents could occur. After identifying these areas, the company is then going to calculate the amount of energy that could be released at these panels, different facilities, and then determine a safe factor for staff or contractors to work in. An arc flash study isn't going to stop an arc flash, but it can reduce the potential harm if you reduce that or increase that distance. When the arc flash study is complete, appropriate safety procedures will be implemented. This will include warning labels, proper PPE. It will also easily let contractors and staff know, hey, I should not open this panel. I don't have the training, or I'm not wearing the proper equipment. And it will also receive updated or new one-line studies for these areas where the arc flash potential exists. So we had 2 contractors give us quotes. The lower quote was $28,467, and I recommend we proceed with that. Are there any questions?
This is really an educational tool, right? Educating not only the employees, but also contractors within the facilities by way of different distances, you're saying? Is that what you said? And then as far as the PPE that we have around those facilities, what do we have for PPE to even open certain cabinets?
So we haven't done the study. Part of that study will give us those warning labels that say what the potential is and then what the PPE is required. I am making an assumption here that there will be some panels that staff will no longer be able to open because we don't have the proper training or licensing for that. And there will be some other panels that will have to invest in some PPE so that we can perform the work. And it's kind of a 2-part thing. So number 1, it's safety. It's protecting the employees and the contractors. And the second part of it is they changed electrical code, and I don't remember the code now, but a lot of insurance companies are starting to require these arc flash studies to be done to keep insurance. So,
If you ever want to be scared, go to YouTube and watch some arc flash videos because it's a scary thing. And actually, so Tom and Derek Gauger went to some training and brought this back to us and said, hey, we need to understand what arc flash is. We need to learn about this. And it was very eye-opening because we are not. And that's what we're doing here is we want to get ourselves prepared to protect our employees and then take whatever that next step is and knowing where we shouldn't go or where we can with the proper PPE.
I don't have to go. I've dealt with the aftermath of Arc Flash. I think this is kind of like, we need to find out what we don't know about our sites. Scott, I'm sure you're learning a lot about them.
My only concern is that, in this process, we're not all of a sudden going to go buy ourselves some rubber gloves and sleeves and think that we can start opening up cabinets. That's my biggest concern.
So as Tom mentioned, this is, a phased approach, and the next step after we identify the situations, because right now we don't know what we have, the next step is proper training. And proper training might simply be that you don't ever go in that cabinet. That's where training will come into place.
What's the timeline on getting this study done and completed if we approve it tonight?
I reached out to the contractor that provided this quote, and he said that it could be completed by 2026. So I'm thinking fall if we get it scheduled.
The reason I was asking is just, it sounds like we know we're going to need to probably possibly invest in some training in 2026 and some PPE and other things. So we just need to think about setting some amount of funds aside for that in the budget process if we don't have kind of the report in time for the 26 budget.
That makes sense.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Westfall and Company for the Arc Flash study for a cost of $28,467.
I'll second that.
Questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
I think just when this is done, I think there's some interest, since we've never done this, about just if you guys could tell us what you learned. All right. Item 8, consider recommendation from Park and Rec Board to utilize fund balance surplus funds for a sign at the grandstand honoring Tim Wenzel. Vicki.
Hi. Since Tom did such a good job and updated them a little, I guess my background on this is kind of short because you guys all kind of know, but they don't, so I'll give them a little history too. Tim Wenzel, I would say for 25 plus years, has volunteered his services at the grandstand. He fertilizes, cuts the grass with his own mower. I mean, he is over and above. So at a Park and Rec meeting, we decided that we are going to name the field Wenzel Field. And Tim graciously accepted. I had to twist his arm just a tad, but he did it. So what I'm asking is if we can find some money in the surplus budget to purchase the sign. We want to have a little dedication to him this spring, summer, probably summer, when we get the sign up so that we can get the sign, and I think he'll like that, so. The sign is $2,083, and it would be from Signs and Lines.
Just to clarify too, Vicki did work with Scott Johnson, the building inspector, to make sure that it meets sign code.
Because there are 2 other signs up there right now. So there can only be so many square feet, and it does meet the code. Yes. Thanks, Jason. I forgot that part.
40 isn't here to give all the history of the Wenzel family and all. Now it's going to have to fall on me, but it is a family that has a long history of being involved with the Park and Recs, particularly baseball. And we're going back my dad's years. So I'm going to make the motion to approve the, $2,083 for a sign honoring Tom Wenzel at the grandstand.
I'll second that.
All right, questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Vicki. All right, on to ordinances and resolutions. Item 1, consider ordinance 2025-02, recommended by the Plan Commission to approve amending the village's zoning regulations, Section 510, regarding access standards. This is for the middle school. They want to put in a 3rd access point. And this is basically saying we don't normally allow that, but the Plan Commission now can evaluate that should it make sense.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-02 to amend the village zoning regulations regarding access standards.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, Resolution 2025-03, Second Amendment to 2022 Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, Corp. Oh, sorry, my bookmarks are not working. Eileen, sorry. Why is my bookmark not working?
So the Corp Plan,
Oh, thank you.
Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, is the village's document that is required. It's kind of our master plan for the parks, and it's required for granting, the grant process. And one of the things that Park and Rec has been working on is bathrooms at Playmore Park, and they're going to seek a grant for that. However, the bathrooms at Playmore Park were not mentioned in our Corp Plan, so that's what this amendment does.
Sorry, Vicki, my scrolling went to a memo that said Eileen at the top, so.
Oh, that's okay.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think Jason covered it.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-03, Second Amendment to the 2022 Corp Plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So Resolution 2025-04, authorizing state stewardship grant application for design and construction of the restrooms at Playmore Park. So that's then related to that.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-04, authorizing state stewardship grant application for design and construction of restrooms in Playmore Park.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 4, Resolution 2025-05, appointing trustee Scott Seeger as acting village president. So this is for when I'm indisposed and not available. And since Scott has experience as village president, I don't think Jim's going to oppose this motion.
I'm gonna make a
He's going to
motion.
make a motion? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-05, appointing trustee Scott Seeger as acting village president.
I'll second that. Any questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 5, Resolution 2025-06, approving the sale of approximately 11.2 acres of village-owned land and authorizing execution of all documents to effectuate the transaction. Parcel number RA5122000002. This is in regard to the Bryan development we talked about earlier.
You see any problems with it, Chris, at all? Everything good?
It's the title company requires it. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay. I make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-06 for parcel RA5122000002.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, staff reports. Item 1, financial reports for March, the March financial report, variance report, and airport financial report. Eileen, anything you want to highlight or any questions for Eileen?
Where's 40 when you need them?
Anybody see any percentages you want to ask? Okay. Item 2, municipal court for March 2025. Any questions on that? All right. Committee reports, library board minutes from March 11th. Mary, anything you want to highlight?
I do want to just point out that the library board has been meeting with some architects. They have one in particular they want to recommend, but before they do that, they want to do some site visits. This would be for the use of impact fees to come up with a design. So the goal is to try to have something before this board in the third Monday in May.
There's a comment in here. Oh, I just lost my, give me a second. You said Jim Novi is watching Supreme Court case that could affect the E-rate and Federal Universal Service Fund. What's the E-rate? Affect the E-rate, and what does that mean?
There are some positions that are being funded at the state level. These have to do with museums and institutions, and at this point, there are 9 positions in the state of Wisconsin that are funded. 8 of those are no longer going to be funded. This may have an impact on the money that is available to the system, Prairie Lake system, that comes down further. So Jim Novi does a lot of the finance for the system. So they're kind of watching to see whether or not, what kind of impact that will have on the system. Not so much on our village library, but at the state and system level.
So is this a U.S. Supreme Court case?
Yes, it is.
And these are federal funds that are distributed to the states, which are then distributed down in the state of Wisconsin to the
Correct.
library systems to run, okay,
Different programs.
got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Sure.
All right. Item 2, Plan Commission draft minutes from April 14th. We approved one of the things there. Any questions for me or Scott, since we were both there? The only other thing there was a catch-up on something. All right, item 3, Parks and Rec Board Minutes, February 10th. Any questions? Vicky's here. Any questions for Vicky? Vicky, you get some new members on Park and Rec. All right. Item 4, Airport Advisory Committee minutes from March 10th. Anything you want to highlight, Jim?
Just to note, meeting on May 19th, the group is here, we'll be presenting the master plan, airport layout master plan to the village board. We'll have a busy meeting.
It's exciting. That'll, to Kevin's question about, leases at the airports, too few. So we should have more. Okay. So there is no need for a closed session, is there?
I'd like to discuss the extension.
Okay.
An extension request for the loss.
Oh, okay. All right, then I will make a motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Section 1985-1E of Wisconsin statutes, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Specifically, item 2 here, a development agreement with Lofts of Honey Creek LLC for development within tax increment District 4. Roll call vote, please.
President Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee Harding? Trustee Holm?
Yes.
Trustee Moody? Trustee Nugent? Yes.